Frank Reich is the head coach. You beat Stanford to end that season to clinch that 10th win, the hottest team in the country. You can't keep them out, Joe.
So now Stanford, because they beat Boston College last week,
They're ranked.
Okay.
Notre Dame's in the top 25 today. They're going to have 10 straight victories. There's no way they stay out. Now, are you telling me that they're going to get tripped up by NC State?
NC State's
Devin
undefeated.
Leary still there? I don't even know.
NC State, Dave Torrance there.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Mike McDaniel got a personal victory.
Yeah, he did get fired on the tarmac. Okay, I can go
yeah.
back. Yeah.
Well, this has been my take on the Dolphins. I think you'll agree. The more they lose, Tyreek Hill becomes the most important player in football. Because Tyreek Hill getting traded becomes likelier and likelier.
Yeah.
And Don, he's not going to get traded to the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
This is a guy who's going to shift Super Bowl markets if he is dealt.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left on it for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome in and a very happy Wednesday to you. Now it is the Early Line on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Ranieri, and it is our job and our duty to get you ready midweek here for what is about to come. And what is coming is week 5 in the college football season, week 4 in the NFL season, just 24 hours away from kicking off with Seattle and Arizona. And we got the final week of the Major League Baseball season underway. And last night certainly delivered the drama that Major League Baseball was looking for. So we're going to cover all of that and get you ready as we welcome in our good friend George Kurtz stepping in here today on the Early Line. And George, it's a beautiful time of year, right? Rob Manfred wanted some drama in the final week of the Major League Baseball season, and it's delivering, among other things, that's for sure.
Absolutely, right? Blue Jays having trouble clinching the American League East now. Mets finally win a game here. They're back in first place now, back in the wild card first place now. So they're back in the playoffs, right? Cincinnati can't beat Pittsburgh. They score 2 runs in the first, don't score for the rest of the game here. Padres only a game behind the Los Angeles Dodgers in the National League West, right? So Arizona comes back. They come back in the 9th inning. They score a couple of runs, beat the Dodgers here and extras here, and now they're still a game back of the Mets here. They're getting the drama they want, and it's hard to believe that the Mariners can clinch the American League West. Their magic number is 1. They win tonight, they clinch, or obviously if the Astros lose tonight, they also clinch. So just a pretty it's going to be a wild last week in MLB.
No, it certainly is, and that's just part of the story that we've got for you here today. So let's do our 7 and 7 here with some of the biggest stories happening across the board. We're going to start in the NFL, where injury news continues to pile up here, George, but maybe some good news. I don't know how good this is going to be, though, but Mike Evans, that hamstring injury, apparently the team is thinking maybe he is not as expected to be as away from the team for as long as maybe first feared, as the 6-time Pro Bowl receiver. Well, he was hobbling off the field against the Jets. We all saw that. But they say might just be a couple of weeks here before they can get him out. He did lose 3 games last season because of a hamstring injury. The problem here, George, is that if they lose him for 3 games, Well, the next 3 games are kind of brutal. They got the Eagles this week. Then they got to travel to Seattle in week 5. And then they got to return home to host the undefeated 49ers in week 6. Oh, yeah, before they hop back on a plane and take on the Lions. So it is a all hands on deck, but at least good news, he won't be out for maybe much longer than the next 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, this seems like being a yearly thing with Mike Evans, right? He does get hurt, and it's generally a soft tissue injury, lower leg injury. So my guess is he'll miss 3 games again, somewhere around there. It's a hamstring. You never truly know until you can test it for full go here. And there's always the worry that when you go full go, it's not there. You re-injure the hamstring. So I think he's going to miss a few games. I guess the better news would be we think Chris Godwin's going to return this week. All right, so you lose Evans, you just have Godwin here. Remember, Buka, by the way, was also banged up going into last week. He had his snaps sort of monitored in that game there. So it's a good thing they're 3-0. Let's put it that way, all right? So, listen, it's never, bad if we lose 2 out of 3. But if you do lose 2 out of 3, you're still 4-2, you're okay. All right, not the biggest thing. Plus, we saw the Falcons, who are probably your biggest competition, get swamped last week. And now they're a big kill question about Michael Penix. So, yeah, maybe you don't have somebody chasing you anyway. So I think with Mike Evans, we're not surprised. He gets hurt every year. Hopefully, Chris Godwin comes back to replace him here. Hopefully, Booker is healthy enough to play a full complement of snaps anyway, and they'll be okay here. But, yeah, they're looking to survive the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Giant fans finally have something to celebrate here because the Jackson Dart era is officially about to begin, and who can blame them after a 22-9 loss to the Chiefs and Dable being uncommittal to good old Russ because he's just not cooking anymore. Well, the announcement came out yesterday, George, that it will be Jackson Dart as the starting quarterback for the Giants this week and moving forward. So, I'm cautionary about it. Careful what you wish for, but there is no doubt the Giant offense can use any boost they can get. And this kid, I think, can give it to them.
So they have nothing to lose here, right? Wilson looks done. All right, he was probably done last year. All right, he's probably done with Seattle. Moved on from him, right? He was done with Denver. Didn't do anything with Pittsburgh last year. Now not doing anything with the Giants. We can't be surprised about this. Your only question is Dart ready? And if Dart's ready, I have no problem with this move. But are you rushing this? Is Brian Dable trying to save his job? All right. Listen, I thought it was silly that the Mariners kept him because if you go with the new quarterback, why are you going with a regime where if you have a bad year, you're going to get rid of that regime and have that new quarterback start with a new offensive coordinator next year? Doesn't really make any sense to me here. The problem is this, Joe. You just went over the Tampa Bay schedule. Have you looked at the Giants schedule? You're playing the Chargers this week. All right, you do get New Orleans next week, which is really why I thought Dart would come in against New Orleans. Then after that, Philadelphia, Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit. Even New England there has a defense there in week 13. It's a brutal, brutal schedule. So you're asking a lot from Jackson Dart to save the season. The season is done for the Giants. They need to do whatever they can do to make sure Dart is going to be successful. And if that's starting this week, great. But I do wonder if they should have waited just a little longer if he's really ready for prime time here against this kind of schedule here, against these kind of defenses going forward here. But then again, Russell Wilson didn't even throw the ball at Malik Neighbors in the first half last week. That can't happen.
We got a couple of college football stories as well. One involving, my alma mater, Oklahoma State, announced yesterday that they are parting ways with good old coach Mike Gundy. He is out, ending a 21-year head coaching tenure after, 2 of the most embarrassing losses of not only his career, but maybe in Oklahoma State history, where they got dismantled by Oregon 69-3 a couple of weeks ago. And then they lose to Tulsa in Stillwater for the first time since the 1950s. And unfortunately, it was time to go. This is a guy that played quarterback there, was the quarterback with 1988 Heisman Trophy winner Barry Sanders when he was at Oklahoma State, went 170-90 at Oklahoma State, was the second longest tenured coach in college football. And while he will now look for greener pastures here, and if you are down the road in Norman, and you're celebrating that, I wouldn't celebrate too long because we also learned that the Oklahoma starting quarterback, John Mateer, who, many people believe and was right up at the top of the odds board when it came to the Heisman odds. Well, he has to undergo surgery on his right throwing hand now today to repair an injury that he looks like he suffered in the win over Auburn on Saturday. There's no timetable for him, but that's kind of upsetting when you have national championship hopes and dreams with a new quarterback, and he's got to go under the knife on his throwing hand, no less. So not a great situation there for OU. But like he had mentioned there, George, we've got plenty of Major League Baseball to talk about coming up this hour, given the fact that we are watching epic meltdowns across the league in the final week of the regular season. Will they or won't they? Will the Mets hold on? Will the Reds get it done? What about the Diamondbacks? Not to mention, of course, the Detroit Tigers. We got a lot to unpack there. And get yourself ready for a new era in Giant football. We'll talk more about it as the early line continues here on the Grid.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
Remember these names: AZ Fudd, Olivia Miles, Lauren Betts. Depending on who wins that lottery, that's going to depend on who goes what. If Washington wins, it's Fudd. She's from the area. If Dallas wins, they're going to bring Fudd to play with obviously Paige. If Minnesota wins, I think they go Miles with the point. If Seattle wins, they go with Miles, and the same thing with Chicago.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I was looking at through my phone at first. I'm like, why is there such a delay? And why are we getting pitch hitters right away? Oh, the pitcher got thrown out for some reason. Maybe he hurt himself. But no, turning out and seeing a brawl was absolutely hilarious to let that one play out. Just the way it is sometimes in baseball. We don't get a lot of good fights and a lot of good brawls and anger, specifically from two teams that aren't going to the playoffs. So good on them for showing that moxie last time. But it's good to see a little bit of a brawl and a little bit of that passion here.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
If a game is on the line,
give me the Navy kicker.
Oh,
the guy's going into battle in 2 weeks. He can't make an extra point. Come on.
From a mindset perspective, yeah. I'm not. Listen, we thank them for their service. I love them. Okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if you have a bet and you have an academy kicker with a field goal or an extra point, you got to hold your breath.
27 yards. You know,
27 yards. The kid shanked it from like 30.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
All right, welcome back into the early line here on the SportsGrid Network as we get ready to unveil a new segment here on the show each and every week. Obviously, when it comes to handicapping sports, wagering on sports, knowledge is power, and understanding some of the intricacies of what's going on with the market and certain games, well, is pretty vital to making sure that you are a profitable handicapper at that. And we've got a couple of new spread lines that we want to talk about with you here, because we have seen significant line movement in a few very big games this weekend, especially in college football. And one of the games that we're talking about here is Notre Dame, who is fresh off that beatdown of Purdue. Well, now they got to travel to Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks, who, if you've been watching this show, you know how much I have been screaming and yelling about the Razorbacks, because they have invented new ways to lose games the last couple of weeks. But now they are home, and this game opened up as Notre Dame being a 6-point road favorite. But guess what? It's now down to -4 at most places. Even a couple of 3.5 starting to pop in. Now, what's ironic about this is the public loves the Fighting Irish. We all know it. The public money, the majority of tickets, all on Notre Dame. But the line keeps moving towards Arkansas. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a clear pros versus Joe situation here. And I get it, because 2 starting defensive backs out for Notre Dame. They were out last week in that Purdue game. They also were without their kicker, Noah Burnett. He also missed that game against Purdue, and he likely will be out again. So this is a very banged up Notre Dame team that is struggling defensively. Now it has to hop in a plane, head to Arkansas in a very hostile environment. Keep an eye on the injury news for Notre Dame, because I think if this line hits to -3, I'll be jumping on Notre Dame. And we're seeing the same pros versus Joes in the Ole Miss versus LSU game coming up this weekend here. This game, look ahead, was LSU -3. The game opened up LSU -1.5 as a road favorite at Ole Miss. And the ticket count, again, all public money, all the public running, in fact, and backing LSU as the road favorite. The problem is LSU is no longer the favorite. Ole Miss now is the favorite. So this line reached as high as -2.5 for Ole Miss yesterday. Then we started to see the buyback. So we've seen the pros just turn Ole Miss from a home dog to a home favorite. I'm watching LSU money, though, because I'm waiting here just until about kickoff, because I believe once this game gets a little bit closer to Saturday, this is a nationally televised game, it would not shock me if this game goes to a pick'em. But forget the spread. This is one of those situations where don't get caught up, -1.5, a pick'em, just bet the winner, pick the money line, and you'll be good to go in this game. But the pros clearly on Ole Miss in that spot there. And one other game, too, that is of interest is with Cal traveling across the country to play Boston College. Now, this is a situation in which we just watched Cal get upended by San Diego State. And when I say upended, blanked 34-0. Now they've got to travel all the way to the East Coast, from California all the way to Boston, to take on BC, who's coming off a bye week. Problem is here, this is their first long road trip. It's not like they've been traveling all over the country yet. You can thank the ACC for bringing West Coast teams into its conference, because that's what's going to be happening from here on out. But Boston College has had a week to lick its wounds, because they got absolutely smoked by Stanford the last time we saw them play. Yes, that's Stanford, who didn't know who their coach was going to be, had to turn over the entire roster, a terrible team. And yet Bill O'Brien, the head coach of Boston College, figured out a way to lose that game. On the other side, you got Justin Wilcox, Cal's head coach. The guy has been an ATM machine as an underdog. He is now getting 6 points in this game. It's rising to 6.5. Cal turned the ball over and shot themselves in that 34-0 loss to San Diego State a million times. I am backing and waiting till that line hits 7. Once I can get a touchdown with Cal, and it's going to happen, I'll be all over the Cal Bears, plus the points, plus I'll be sprinkling on the money line in that one. And for the NFL, a couple of games to keep an eye on here. And George, the Jackson Dart era we mentioned begins in New York, because Russ is, well, he's just cooked at this point. We got an 0-3 Giants team taking on a 3-0 Chargers team. And we saw this game open up with the Chargers -5.5. It was bet as high as 6.5 here yesterday. And then, of course, the news broke about Dart starting the game. And I was wondering if we were going to get any buyback on the Giants. But guess what? We haven't. We still see about 6.5 in the marketplace. And this is one to keep an eye on because the Chargers are on a short week. They're flying across the country for an early start. And listen, the one thing this team needs is some motivation and some, a fire lit. For an 0-3 team to get the rookie who played great in the preseason, everybody's got to elevate their game, right? I think if this game gets to a touchdown for the Chargers, I'm going to have to look towards the G-men getting a TD at home. George, what do you think?
Listen, I took the G-men on Sunday night. Now, granted, that was with Russell Wilson, but it was against Kansas City, a team that I don't think is all that great this season here. So I took the G-men getting, I think it was about 6.5 versus Kansas City. Didn't work out all that well. Quarterback's not the only problem the Giants have, right? They really don't play the run very well here. They're letting receivers get behind them. It doesn't matter how good your pass rush is, and it is really good for the Giants, but if you let receivers get behind you, they're going to get hit, and Justin Herbert is playing like an MVP candidate, right? Maybe the best we've seen him play in his young career here. It's going to be hard to take the Giants where I'm going. I don't think I can take the Giants back-to-back weeks, Joe. I just can't do it here. Everything you said is true. Short a week, flying cross-country here, but the Chargers, outside of the Buffalo Bills, might be the best team in the AFC. They are playing that well, and we don't know how a rookie quarterback's going to do in his first start. I know he had a great preseason, right? The Giants are scoring 40 points a week in preseason. It counts now against a really good team here. I don't see how I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on the Giants.
Well, we got one more game we're going to talk about when we come back because the Browns taking on Detroit. Fascinating what's happening in the market with this one as well. We'll have it for you on the early line on the grid.
Frank Reich is the head coach. You beat Stanford to end that season to clinch that 10th win, the hottest team in the country. You can't keep them out, Joe.
So now Stanford, because they beat Boston College last week, okay.
Notre Dame's in the top 25 today. They're going to have 10 straight victories. There's no way they stay out. Now, are you telling me that they're going to get tripped up by NC State?
NC State's undefeated.
Still there? I don't even know.
NC State, Dave Torrance there.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Mike McDaniel got a personal victory.
Yeah, he get fired on the tarmac. Okay, I can go
yeah.
back. Yeah.
Well, this has been my take on the Dolphins. I think you'll agree. The more they lose, Tyreek Hill becomes the most important player in football because Tyreek Hill getting traded becomes likelier and likelier.
Yeah.
And Don, he's not going to get traded to the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
This is a guy who's going to shift Super Bowl markets if he is dealt.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here to the Early Line on the SportsGrid Network. Middle week here as we look to get you prepared for what should be a epic Week 4 in the NFL, Week 5 in college football, and the end of the Major League Baseball regular season. Joe Ranieri alongside George Kurtz here. And we've got one more spread line we want to talk to you about, and that is in the NFL with Cleveland traveling to Detroit this week. And it appears, George, that the Lions, well, they're not dead without Ben Johnson calling plays after all. They just dismantled the Ravens defense. And now they head home on a short week to take on these upstart Browns, who have maybe the best defense in the NFL. They just destroyed, by the way, the team that kicked the Lions from goal to start the season in the Green Bay Packers. They just beat that team. And this line opened up Lions 9.5. And all we've seen is Browns money so far, dropping it down to -9. And the total is the interesting part here, George, because it opened up 46.5, and it's been bet down to 44. So we've got a very low total, and we've got a team laying almost double digits. That's not a great combination. Something has got to give there. And to me, I'm going to see if the public comes in and starts pushing this thing to back to 9.5, maybe even 10 before the kickoff, because after all, recency bias, it is Detroit. I'll be looking to back the Browns if I can get this to -10. I think that's the buy point here with the Browns on the road with that defense. I think getting 10 is probably a good value.
I don't think there's any doubt there'll be a little letdown from the Detroit Lions. You played Monday night in Baltimore. Huge game, right? And you throttled them. I know it was 38-30 was the final, but you really throttled the Ravens there. So there'll be a letdown in this game, right? My problem is going to be this. If you let's just say it gets to 9.5, 10, like you said, and I think it will get up there, especially as we go later and later in the week here. How many points do we think the Browns can score? That defense, as you said, might be number one in the NFL. I completely agree. Myles Garrett, give him Defensive Player of the Year. He is that good. But that offense sucks. It is bad. All right. I mean, we're talking about Jackson Dart. When is Dylan Gabriel taking over? When are we going to see Shedeur Sanders? We're going to see both this year. I have no doubt about that. That's going to happen there. They can't score. On a great day, the Browns score, 13 points here? So it means you only need Detroit to score 23, 24. They cover the spread here. And that's it. The Browns can get the 13, which I don't know if they can. They beat Green Bay last week because Jordan Love threw an interception on the second to last drive. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What did you see there? You and I don't throw that interception. It was an easy read there, but he made a bad play. So I'm gonna have that's my problem here. If the Browns had a below average offense, I'm right there with you, right? But his offense is bad. Yeah, it's Judkins and prayers. All right, that's all it is. Flacco's a statue back there. He's going to get sacked 1,000 times here. I think the Detroit Lions, they won't blow them. It's not going to be 34-3. It's not going to be that. There'll be a letdown there. The defense is that good. But I can see this being 20-7, and therefore Detroit covers, even though they didn't really do all that much.
Yeah, well, total is 44. Somebody's scoring. And it ain't going to be all Detroit making up the 44 points there. So it's going to be interesting. Getting 10 points with anybody at this point in the year with a number one defense, yeah, worth the shot. But wait, it's -9 now because the Browns have been getting the pro money. The public ain't running to the window to back the Cleveland Browns. So keep an eye on that line as the week progresses. And that is your spread line here for this Wednesday. But we got a lot to look forward to because, again, the Jackson Dart era is happening with the Giants. And I'm going to be interested to see this line movement as well here, George. But there is no doubt, sometimes a team needs a kick in the you-know-what here offensively. Listen, we saw this team look very good at times with Jackson Dart because he does a lot of different things that Russ can't do anymore. 44.5, again, a low total. Cross country. I mean, if you can get a touchdown in this and you already bet the Giants, I'm rooting for him. But the question is he going to be successful enough to save Dable's job this year? Is that basically what we're hoping for?
Not with that schedule. I mean, it's the schedules are too brutal there. I think the only way Dable gets his job saved, they're not going to win games, Joe, but maybe Dart shows, oh, wow, he's taking off with Dable, right? He's playing better here. And they keep Dable for that reason because they don't want to put him in a new system next year and start over from scratch. That I can see here. But he played very well in preseason, but he was seeing vanilla defenses here. The Chargers are going to throw every blitz and every kind of complicated defense he's never seen before at him. We'll see what he does.
Well, that's it. Fingers crossed, Giant fans, and fingers crossed, Detroit Tiger fans. Are you watching what is happening? We'll break it down for you as the early line continues on the grid.
Frank Reich is the head coach. You beat Stanford to end that season to clinch that 10th win, the hottest team in the country. You can't keep them out, Joe.
So now Stanford, because they beat Boston College last week, would have put. Okay.
Notre Dame's in the top 25 today. They're going to have 10 straight victories. There's no way they stay out. Now, are you telling me that they're going to get tripped up by NC State?
NC State's
Devin
undefeated.
Leary still there? I don't even know.
NC State, Dave Torrance there.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Mike McDaniel got a personal victory.
Yeah, he get fired on the tarmac. Okay, I can go
yeah.
back. Yeah.
Well, this has been my take on the Dolphins. I think you'll agree. The more they lose, Tyreek Hill becomes the most important player in football because Tyreek Hill getting traded becomes likelier and likelier.
Yeah.
And Don, he's not going to get traded to the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
This is a guy who's going to shift Super Bowl markets if he is dealt.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left on for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in on this Wednesday. Here it is, the Early Line on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Ranieri, joined by our good friend George Kurtz, and it is chaos here. And if you thought chaos was reigning supreme in the NFL and college football over the weekend, you got to check out what's happening here in Major League Baseball, the final week of the regular season. And listen, Rob Manfred wanted more teams vying for wild card spots, postseason berth, and all of it, all the changes that he has made over the years has been geared towards making baseball a lot more relevant the last week of the regular season heading into the postseason. And George, mission accomplished here, because we are watching one of the truly epic all-time meltdowns of any professional team in sports with the Detroit Tigers, who, once again, I remind everyone, this is a team that is now 5 games under 500 since the All-Star break, with the Cy Young award-winning starting pitcher going for them last night in an opportunity to right the ship. They have lost 9 of their last 10 games heading into this one against the Guardians. The Guardians have been red hot, even though they basically tried to get rid of everybody at the trade deadline. They lost one of the best closers in Major League Baseball, suspended indefinitely for a gambling investigation, also one of their top starting pitchers. And yet, here they are, catching the Detroit Tigers, who at no point, any time in the season, did anybody ever think Detroit wasn't winning the American League Central? Well, guess again. And we saw it again last night. They have invented another way to lose games here. And when it's going wrong, it's just going wrong here, George, for Detroit.
They had a 15.5 game lead. All right, it'd be the worst collapse in Major League Baseball history as far as the big lead you're going to blow here. Right now, they're not in first place anymore. All right, Cleveland has passed them, and Cleveland owns the tiebreaker here for those who are wondering. You had your ace on the mound last night in Tariq School, and you had a 2-0 lead, right? The Riley Green home run gave you a 2-0 lead, and then you have just a meltdown where the ball doesn't leave the infield, and yet you give up 3 runs. Skubal hit David Fry in the face, too. Not on purpose, by the way. You could see his reaction, complete accident, when Fry turned around to bunt here. And it was a meltdown, just a meltdown. I mean, they can't hit. They're not playing good ball right now. You said it, Joe. you would have asked me a month ago, or at any point during the season that Antonio Detroit's not going to make the playoffs. What are you talking about? What are you smoking? Instead, yeah, they're in deep doo doo. All right, they're in a lot of trouble here. They may not get in here, and none of us saw that coming here. And if Scooble can't stop the bleeding, Joe, who is?
Well, that's the whole thing. If you can't win Scooble starts, it's over for you, Detroit. It truly is, because one team is gaining all the momentum, and boy, oh boy, Detroit just can't stop from drowning here. And I don't know that it gets any better here today, but the Yankees made it official. They are heading back to the postseason with an opportunity to avenge last year's disgusting effort against the Dodgers in the big game, but they did win the American League pennant. They'll have a shot to do it, and they too a flair for the dramatic last night. This was a 2-1 game heading into the ninth there. A wild pitch ties it, and then we had a walk-off shot to get it done for the Yankees, and guess what? They're going back to the postseason.
Yeah, no shock that they're going back to the postseason, right? We expect that from the Yankees. What kind of damage can they do in the postseason? The Yankees are a weird team. I mean, I don't think it would shock anybody if they go back to the World Series. It also wouldn't shock anybody if they lose 2 out of 3 in the wild card round. They're done. All right, so we don't know what we're going to get. And they're also, by the way, they're not dead for the division. Toronto lost again last night, right? Boston beat them. Big win for the Red Sox. Yankees are only a game behind. All right, they play the White Sox for 2 more, then Baltimore for 3. Toronto's got Boston for 2 more, then they do get the Rays. But the Yankees aren't done. They'll have Max Fried going tonight, Carlos Rodon going tomorrow against the White Sox. You would expect a sweep here. So any slip up by the Jays, all of a sudden we're tied. We're tied going into the final 3 games here of the regular season. So we'll see what could happen here. But the Yankees are that weird team. We know they like to bludgeon you to death. They lead the Major League Baseball in home runs here. But their fundamentals, not the greatest, to put it nicely. Last night, once again, the only run the White Sox scored was maybe a miscommunication between Grisham and Judge in the outfield. Ball drops in there, leads to a run there. And also, another runner picked off base. Something that's been an epidemic now for the Yankees over the last 10 days. So the little things the Yankees aren't very good at. And generally in the playoff show, the little things catch up to you.
Well, listen, we had thought that the Yankees might be heading into a best-of-3 wild card series next week against the Red Sox. At least that's what it looked like over the last couple of weeks. But all of a sudden, they're 1 game back of the Toronto Blue Jays with 5 to go. Now, Toronto does hold the tiebreaker, but could it be that the Yankees, maybe, just maybe, with no Garrett Cole, right, which is kind of crazy here, will they be able to overtake Toronto, who Boston had no problem against Gausman last night handling business?
I don't think so. That tiebreaker is a problem. But Crochet goes tonight for the Red Sox, all right, against Scherzer. You got to think, you have to think the Red Sox win tonight. Yankees, like I said, Max Fried's going tonight. You got to hit the Yankees win tonight. So I think we're going to be tied going into the last 4 games of the season. And then we'll see what happens here. Red Sox have Bello going tomorrow, I think, against Bieber. So that's a much better pitching matchup. But the advantage still goes to the Blue Jays. They have the tiebreaker, 1, and 2, they play the Rays the last 3 games. And Joe, I wonder if the Rays are like, you know what? It's been an interesting season playing in Steinbrenner Field. We don't have a stadium. We're done. All right, where are we going Monday? We're going to Aruba, we're going to Hawaii, going to Europe. Let's get out of here. So I do wonder if the Rays. I don't know how big a fight the Rays are going to have in them this weekend.
Well, the Mets had a little bit of fight in them last night, although once again it didn't start great. And boy, oh boy, before they knew it, they were in a big hole. We had a 5-run lead for the Cubs last night, and then the wheels kind of started to fall off, and you got to be scoreboard watching because they already knew late in the night there that the Reds earlier had already lost to the Pirates somehow, but they were able to get it done late with a 2-run Alvarez home run there. Late in the game, they were able to hold on, and they got it done 9-7, and now in many aspects control their own destiny once again here, George.
That noise you heard from New York was everybody exhaling. Boy, did they need that. All right, that was 6-1 at one time. Peterson, who might have been your opening playoff rally on SP1, got shellacked again. I don't know who starts for the Mets. Probably McClain at this point. But They came back. They won the game. Now they can relax a little bit. I do wonder, Joe, if this is that, all right, we're going to be okay. All right, now if they get back on, I'm not saying they're going to win the last 5 games, but if they're going to go back to being a normal baseball team and not choking it up here. We'll see tonight, by the way, because Boyd's going for Chicago. He's going up against Tong there, one of those youngsters the Mets called up along with McClain and Sproat. So it won't be easy for them. But I think the Cubs are a mirage, by the way. I don't think they're a very good team. That pitching staff, not very good. So I think the Mets have a chance to at least take 2 out of 3 here. Then they played Miami over the weekend. We'll see if Miami still has anything to play for. They pretty much need to win out to have any chance at anything. And they're playing the Phillies, of course, here. But I think the Mets now, where they might have been gripping that bat real tight, Joe, can relax a little bit now. You won a game. It's okay. We're going to be all right.
Problem is, Peterson's short start last night. Once again, the Mets had to dig deep into a bullpen that isn't great to begin with. And guess what? I like the way that Mendoza managed the game because he brought Diaz in the 8th and he brought him back out for the 9th. So he had a 2-inning save because he knew it was a game that they had to have. We'll see if that plays a role here tonight because likely, I don't know if he'll be available, which is kind of crazy on the surface when you think about it. But you're right. The Cubs, no urgency with the Cubs here. They know they're in the postseason for the first time in forever. But will that matter here tonight with the Mets bullpen getting a little gassed early in this series? We'll talk more about what's happening with Major League Baseball, but we got some pretty big college football games coming up this week as well. We got you covered here on the Early Line.
Frank Reich is the head coach. You beat Stanford to end that season to clinch that 10th win, the hottest team in the country. You can't keep them out, Joe.
So now Stanford, because they beat Boston College last week, okay.
Notre Dame's in the top 25 today. They're going to have 10 straight victories. There's no way they stay out. Now, are you telling me that they're going to get tripped up by NC State?
NC State's undefeated.
Still there? I don't even know.
NC State, Dave Torrance there.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Mike McDaniel got a personal victory.
Yeah, he get fired on the tarmac. Okay, I can go
yeah.
back. Yeah.
Well, this has been my take on the Dolphins. I think you'll agree. The more they lose, Tyreek Hill becomes the most important player in football because Tyreek Hill getting traded becomes likelier and likelier.
Yeah.
And Don, he's not going to get traded to the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
This is a guy who's going to shift Super Bowl markets if he is dealt.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the 3rd and the 4th spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left on it for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Hour number 1 in full effect right here on the Early Line. It's Donnie Rightside, yes, and Joe Ranieri back together again, and it feels so good. But I do want to shout out George Kurtz for coming in here and filling in for the first 40 minutes of the show, doing a bang-up job. I'm angry. I have a lot of energy right now, Joe, that I have to burn off. Can you please help me with this?
Thank you, Donnie. It's good to see you here. Pleasure to have you back in the seat here as well.
Come on.
It's been an interesting couple of days here, so it's good to hear you and see you coming through loud and clear, man. And just at the right time, because we got a lot going on here over the next couple of days.
No, we do. Let's transition here to college football action. Who would have thought that the AP Top 25 is out and the Ohio State Buckeyes are number 1? We're going to talk about them in just a few moments. The Miami Hurricanes, Joe, up to number 2. Penn State 3, LSU 4, UGA 5. Look at that. What do you have? Two teams in the SEC, 1 team in the ACC, 2 teams in the Big Ten as we head into possibly October football in just a week.
And huge week because it's put up a shut-up time for some of these teams that have scheduled nothing but cupcakes, Donnie, to start the season without truly being tested. Are you, right, Miami, they've played ranked teams over and over and over and just beat Florida as well. So, some of these teams like Penn State, what are we going to get from them here, Donnie, this week?
Yeah, who knows? But I know we're going to get a good game, and that's going to be a whiteout in-state college here. But before we get there, let's head down to the SEC. Night game, Joe, Alabama and Georgia. Opening line, 4.5. We're now seeing 2.5s and 3s in the marketplace, a total of 52.5. Both teams, Joe, bye weeks should be good to go for this game. Number 17 versus number 5.
Well, the question is, which version of these two teams shows up, right? Because we've seen a couple of different versions here. Georgia has been very good at home in this series over the years with Kirby Smart. That goes back even to, the Saban years here. He is a former Saban coach. Don't forget, he's a disciple. But right now, what I've seen from both quarterbacks, you got to give Gunnar Stockton the edge, especially at home here. Is it more than a field goal game? I think that's what it is, Donnie. I think one of these two teams is going to win by margin.
Kevin Skarbinski tweeted out yesterday, fun fact looking forward to Alabama, Georgia, Joe. Did you know this? This will be the 7th time in the last 12 meetings and 3rd straight that Georgia is ranked higher than Alabama in the AP poll. Georgia's record in those previous matchups, Joe, 0-6.
Yeah, not good here. Not good at all. But I got to tell you, it's a new year. It's a new team. And in the era of NIL, it really doesn't make a difference, those trends and those stats anymore, Donnie, because half the team, 3/4 of these teams have never played with one another and have absolutely no history to those trends at all.
What, you don't mean like going back to 1991 to see how many times Alabama beat Georgia factors into a game in 2025? You don't say there, do you, Joe? But how about this one? Let's get into it. Oregon and Penn State, another night game. By the way, Alabama, Georgia, 7:30. Oregon, Penn State, 7:30. You better make sure you have that second screen experience right here with the SportsGrid Network to keep you updated on all the latest. And by the way, Penn State is a favorite, Joe. Opened up at 3.5, still sits at 3.5. The total in this game, 52.5, even 51.5 in the marketplace. Make sure you're shopping around to get the best possible pricing. But hear me out on this. Oregon is really good. Penn State is really good. But I look at Penn State and go, are you ready for prime time at this point? But then I look at Oregon and say, are you ready for prime time at this point? This is a collision in state college this weekend.
It truly, truly is. And again, what are we going to get? We do know that Coach Franklin has had a problem taking down teams that are ranked, top 5 or 6. The better teams, he has not been able to get past here. And don't forget, this look-ahead line, Donnie, was 6.5. And it's now down to 3.5. So the money has been on Oregon thus far this week.
How about that? I mean, I love it. I love the atmosphere. I love the pomp and circumstance, the pageantry. You're going to get that both at Penn State and also Sanford Stadium down there in Athens, Georgia. But if we keep moving on, how about the number 1 team in the country, Joe? It should be a layup out there at Washington. Watch out. If you've never been to Husky Stadium, quite frankly, I haven't been, but watching on TV, there is a reason why big plays are made in Husky Stadium and the camera shakes. That place is absolutely a soundproof barrier that keeps in all the sound on the field. This will be an interesting one to play out. The look-ahead lines, Joe, at some outlets, 13.5. We're down to 8.5 as a favorite for Ohio State. The total at 51.5. Could we be on upset alert in the Big Ten with the number 1 team in the nation, Joe?
Well, if it's not, it's going to be a absolute demolishing by Ohio State, right? So, the big question is going to be, what exactly are we going to get from a young quarterback under center for Ohio State on his first really big test on the road? And those are the kinds of questions, Donnie, We haven't had a chance to see it, but we're going to see it in a big way here for Ohio State, coming off a bye week of all things and an extra week to prepare.
Oh, yes, we do. And by the way, I hope we have this tweet available here on X. LSU Ole Miss, some chicanery going on behind the scenes here. Do you know what that is? Lane Kiffin's daughter is dating star middle linebacker for LSU before the game. They went public, Joe. And by the way, Ole Miss is a favorite at -1.5. This game is going to be played in the Grove, a 55.5 total. Love to see it in the SEC 3:30 game, Joe. So you got the coach, the daughter, the superstar. Could she be dating him? And also, can she get some information to hand back to Pops here for a big win for Ole Miss?
Well, and, Donnie, we talked about this on the spread lines earlier, and this is a game there. The look-ahead line was LSU -3, -3.5. Now, Ole Miss was not expected to be undefeated at this point here, but guess what? It opened up -1.5. LSU is a favorite. They're not the favorite anymore, Donnie. It is flipped. So now they're a slight home favorite, Ole Miss, instead of a slight home dog against LSU. So maybe the market thinks there's something into that relationship in the info they might have.
I got to tell you, Joe, it's time to get excited again in college football. Like, it felt like week 0 was a letdown. Like, okay, football's back, but the game stunk. Week number 1 was absolutely fantastic. You have a ton of really good football games all throughout the afternoon, and then that banger at night, 7:30, Oregon and Penn State, 7:30 with Alabama and Georgia. It doesn't get any better than that, except if you're watching the SportsGrid Network and we go, hey, guys, tomorrow, when you wake up, NFL action is back. Let's preview the game on Thursday night right here on the Early Line.
Let's play a little game of buy or sell. It would appear from most of the reports, George, that Mike McDaniel is going to keep his job as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. This is a long season, though, and they're already 0-3. Buy or sell, McDaniel will be the Dolphins' head coach at the end of the season.
He's going to get fired. All right, it's either now, later in the season, at the end of the season. He's not making it to next year. So the only question is, do they let him go towards the end of the season here? New York, Carolina, Chargers, Cleveland, Atlanta, Baltimore, bye. Atlanta, Baltimore, Buffalo, Washington going into that bye. And that Washington game, by the way, is in Europe somewhere. So I don't think he survives that. I don't think he's going to survive the bye week. I think he's going to go 1-3 of those games, maybe even lose all 4 of those games. No. And I think they will trade some players away, so they're going to be a worse team than they are now here. No, I'm going to sell this. He does not make it to the end of the season. I think they're going to fire him after week 11, if I had to guess. I think it's the perfect spot because not only is there a bye week, tough schedule beforehand, but then you have New Orleans at home. Good place for a new coach to start.
My thing is this, George, and here's why I am going to buy this. I think he's going to make it through the year and then he's going to be fired. Is because I just think it is rock bottom right now. They're 0-3. So, are they going to lose 3 consecutive games again this season? I don't think so. I think they're going to win 6 games or 7 games, which tells me it's win, loss, 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 win, loss, loss, So I just think they make the change at the end of the year. If they're not going to make it now and they're 0-3, the only thing that I would say to caveat would be is if they lose in their next game. If they lose that next game, then 0-4, yes, I think it happens. I don't think they will, though. So I am going to buy this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Only on SportsGrid.
Losing your patience is never a good thing on the Early Line. We like to stay involved and we like to stay connected here is the key word. Donnie Rightside and Joe Ranieri talking some major college football this weekend. So excited to see those games play out. But again, make sure you keep it right on the SportsGrid Network. So many games, so much information that you need. College football on Saturday, we got you covered, no doubt about it. But before we get there, Joe, Thursday Night Football in the NFL, maybe the most competitive division in the NFL? Could it be the NFC West? Because we're going to have Seattle and Arizona. You see Seattle. One fluke play at the end of the game from my offensive line got knocked into me. I dropped the football in a loss to the 49ers. But Seattle's rebounded nicely, which included an absolute pasting of the New Orleans Saints here this past weekend. Arizona, hard-fought loss and a demoralizing loss to the banged-up San Francisco 49ers because James Conner, he's going to be down for the season. I thought this would happen, Joe. We opened up as a 2.5-point favorite for Arizona, and I said early week, there's no way Arizona's going to stay a favorite, and they're not the favorite anymore. Live right now, -1.5s and -1s for the Seattle Seahawks as the favorites now over Arizona. Let's start here, Joe. Do you agree Seattle should be the favorite on Thursday Night Football?
Well, we have said it a lot, Donnie, right? Usually on short weeks in the NFL season, you and I always, but look, we look at the home team. It's kind of home team or pass in the spot. But in this situation, I was on the 49ers last week, covered that game on In-Game Live on Sunday, and what I saw was the same thing that I have seen all the time here with Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. It's just not smart football, Donnie. When they have opportunities, they figure out ways to shoot themselves in the foot. And they are not healthy on the defensive side of the ball, especially in that secondary. Now, Mac Jones was able to make them pay for it somewhat. You got to think Sam Darnold and his running game, they're going to be able to make them pay for it too. I didn't think the right team opened up as the favorite, and the market apparently agreed. Donnie, I'm with you. Seattle should have been the favorite, and they will go off the favorite before kickoff tomorrow night.
You know what I think is interesting about this game, too? Obviously, we have a close line here. It should be competitive. It's Thursday night, coming down from the Pacific Northwest down to Arizona. That is a travel, certainty that you are going to have a short work week, and let's just see if they can overcome that. Now, I do think Seattle overall right now is the better team. That was a devastating injury that they had to James Conner. But you know what it does? Opens up the marketplace. How many times did you look at Arizona like, of course you're just going to take James Conner to score a touchdown because he's the guy that they hand the football to inside the 5-yard line and, quite frankly, can catch it as well inside the red zone. Now you see Trey Benson at a +100 price. Trey McBride at +165. Somebody has to score, and it's not going to be James Conner.
Yeah, no, it is not here. But, think about it, too. You've got a Seattle team that is yet to allow more than, 17 points in a game. And if it wasn't for a couple of empty netters in that Carolina game, the Cardinals defense had been decent, and then the entire secondary ended up getting hurt. So I would actually look for Seattle's wide receivers to have a big game and look for some touchdowns in that market, because that secondary is a hot mess for the Cardinals right now.
Yeah, I love Jackson Smith and Jigma. I mean, the guy is a player here at home, 100-yard games, touchdown games. He's giving that to you right now. That's why they were able to move off of DK Metcalf, knowing what they had behind him. Kyler Murray and Sam Darnold will be the two starting quarterbacks, Joe. 209.5 for Kyler Murray, 223.5 for Sam Darnold. If we line up the passing touchdowns here, both of them listed obviously at 1.5, but a little bit of a juice discrepancy. Kyler Murray +136 to throw to. Sam Darnold +154 to throw to. Why? Because people are probably loving Kenneth Walker getting his share of touchdown action in this game.
Yeah, and I kind of like on the side there the opportunity to take Kyler Murray over a half interception there, because I believe Seattle's defense, which is getting healthier as well, they are going to have an opportunity to pick a couple off here. So I think Kyler Murray's the guy that's going to have more yardage, because I think it's going to be more necessary for him, likely playing from behind to get it done if Arizona has a shot.
NFC West standings here. Again, 2-1s, a 3-0 team in the San Francisco 49ers. But if you look at the odds market right now, the 49ers a +110 price to win it. The Rams +180. The Seahawks +650. And the Cardinals 7-1. The one thing I'm not buying right now is the 49ers. I just think they're going to be too injured throughout the season. So I do see value with the Rams, Seahawks, and maybe if the Cardinals can hang around, Joe.
Yeah, I don't think the Cardinals are hanging around. They're going to need to get some serious health issues corrected there on the defensive side of the ball. I think they'll be fine offensively. But how is Seattle at the same price Arizona is? And is that going to be the same tomorrow after that game, Donnie?
No. I'm telling you, this is going to be one to watch at it, because I'm not high on the 49ers. Somebody needs to take the reins. And by the way, Seattle does win that football game on Thursday night. Why can't they be a player at this point? If they stay healthy, they're good enough to win the NFC West at this point right now. That's the way we see it. And hour number 2 is next. I can't wait to see this. I've never been a part of the early lineup. Let me be a part of it, people. We're back next.